Today on VA Wednesday, we're going to talk about using lender credits in order to help pay your closing costs. So I haven't delved into this as much in the past, and it's because it's something I'm generally pretty torn on. And the reason is you can't promise anything. So like if I talk to you today and you're gonna start shopping in 60 days, I can't promise you that I could do a lender credit big enough to cover your closing costs. I can't promise you that I'd give you $1,000 or $2,000. I can't make those promises. Here's why. And let me tell you where lender credits come from so that you guys understand how it works. Because whenever a lender is saying to you, if you are not in contract, right? If you're just starting to look, my first-time home buyers, if they're saying, well, I'll give you $5,000 towards closing costs, the rate that you could have attached to that $5,000 could be crazy by the time that you're in contract. It could be crazy right now. It's not a guarantee, which is why I stay away from it. You're never going to see me say, well, I can definitely do this. The only time you will hear from my mouth me say I could do a lender credit of XYZ would be if you were ready to lock, or if it had a 5-minute disclaimer about how this works. Okay, so how does it work? So lender credits are tied to the rate sheets. So if I'm looking at a rate sheet, and this is just garbage numbers, this is based on nothing. Let's say I'm looking at my VA rate sheet and I'm at 2.5 at par. What that means is that I'm not charging you money to get that rate, and I'm not giving you money. Now, if I go to 2.375, I'm going to be charging you some amount of money to get that lower rate because it's below par. Okay. Now, if I go above par, meaning above my market rate, then I have money to give you. So if I'm saying 2.5 with no points, well, then there's going to be some money at 2.625, 2.75, 2.875, 3% that I can give to you towards your closing costs. It changes every day. It's what's known as money in the margins. And the thing about money in the margins is it changes every day. So until a lender can actually lock it, it is just a fantasy number. So I think it's important to know for your guys' perspective that it exists, because a lot of times people come to me and they go, I want the lowest rate possible. And my instinct is always to go, okay, you know, at no points I'm at XYZ. I rarely then say, but you know, if you go a little higher, I can give you this. I probably should. And I'd be curious what you guys think. Should I be telling people about what the money in the margin is at the higher rate? Or if someone's asking me for the, you know, lowest rate they can get without points, should I just be doing that? Now, what a lot of lenders do is when you say, oh, I want a really low rate, they go, okay. They go to the bottom of their rate sheet, right? And they go, yeah, I can do 1.875. How many of you guys have gotten those mailers? If you own a house, you know what I'm talking about. And they don't tell you, but I'm going to have to charge you XYZ for that rate because it's below my market rate. So it's very important that you guys are asking these questions. And if you're in a position where you may need closing cost assistance, ask the lender when you're locking if there's money in the margins. Just say, hey, like I know you can do 2.5 with no points, but like, is there any way to go a little higher on the rate and get a lender credit? Okay, because that's the thing, that's what it is. It's whenever a lender's giving you a credit, it's because you're taking a slightly higher rate than the market rate. Okay, so it's important that you guys know where the money's coming from. Now, a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want a lender credit. You know, I actually had one recently, which is why I'm doing this video. So when I'm qualifying, my gut is always, okay, if you don't have money for closing costs, let's get a seller credit. And the reason I go towards that is because that's something we can define. We can say that we need XYZ. It's not going to be based on money in the margins, because sometimes the money in the margins is great. I could see, like, you know, let's say it's a $400,000 loan. Maybe I'm at 2.5 with no points, not giving you anything, but I go up to 2.75 and I can give you $6,000, right? But then there's other days where I could be at 2.5 with no points, and at 2.75, I'm giving you $300. So the money in the margin changes, which is why I'm always gonna go, okay, let's negotiate for a seller credit, because I don't know what the money's gonna be. And if you are, you know, $80,000, $100,000, $200,000 loan amount, there's generally not gonna be enough money in the margin to cover the closing costs. So it's something to keep in mind. So I usually go to the seller credit, because I want you guys to have the lowest rate possible, lowest payment, and also it's definitive. Now, recently we had a situation where a buyer came to us, he'd been working with another lender, he was already in contract, and he didn't have a seller credit, and based on the assets, we were like, dude, this is not gonna work. And it was a really high stress situation where he couldn't renegotiate with the seller. He was actually moving into the house the next day. Oh my gosh, so stressful. And we were like, how are you gonna get this money? And so then we looked at the pricing and we just went, you know, we can't negotiate with the seller now. You don't have the money, you know, it's not gonna happen with the money. If we do this rate, we can pay the closing costs through a lender credit. And I was expecting a reaction of, well, I don't want a higher rate, even if it's a little bit. That's not the reaction I got. The reaction I got was such an immense release of just relief, just like, oh my God, thank you so much. And the reason he was so thankful was because this had just taken a huge burden that was gonna affect his transaction, stress out his family, stress out his life, off his plate. And the solution, you know, it was right there in the numbers. So it's something where I don't always cover it, but I think it's important to talk about. So if you guys are thinking of buying a house, you know, and you're like, we've got money saved for closing costs, but, you know, we're really scared of using it all. Or, you know, there's stuff that you guys have going on in your life that I don't know about. You know, maybe you have a sick child that's in the hospital. Maybe your aunt's sick. Maybe you have to commute to see your dad. I don't know, and I don't know that stuff. So it's important to always ask the lender if you feel like if you guys have some money for closing costs, but it's really gonna put a strain on you guys to use it all, talk to us. Ask us, hey, if I do a slightly higher rate, is there money in the margin? And we will always tell you what we got. Because here's the thing, and this is important for you guys to know, because a lot of people think, well, they won't tell me because they want that money. No, not the way it works. So the ways the law works with lending and being a lender, I get paid the same amount no matter what rate I charge you, as long as I'm charging the market rate. So if I charge you the market rate, I make the same exact amount if I charge you a rate higher. I don't get the money in the margin. It's illegal for me to get the money in the margin. So any of that money in the margin, it goes straight to you guys. So always ask the question. Keep in mind, as a lender, we're not psychic, so we don't know what's going on, you know, behind closed doors. And if having some level of money in the transaction, even if the rate's slightly higher, if that will make your life less stressful for your family, please ask the question. One more thing to note, if a lender is telling you, if they're saying, oh, I'll pay all your closing costs, no problem, you want to talk to them about like, okay, how much should I expect the rate to go up? And if they say, oh, it's only going to be this, you guys need to know that until they're actually locking, those numbers change every day. And a good lender will say, well, if you are locking today, this is what I could do. However, please keep in mind, rates and margins change every day. So this could be different by the time you get into contract. I hope this video has been helpful. If you guys have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. I am licensed in 46 states. I love doing VA mortgages. You guys already know that. So please, if you need a mortgage, call me early. Don't call me when it's too late and the other lender's ripping you off. Thanks for watching.